kicking for you like it's 9-3. You see, Rob impact the mic, keeping it real, G. Talk about relationships, money, and health. Dropping knowledge while I'm spitting it, that's a wealth.
Complex conversations, we break it down. Pop culture topics, we hold it down. Dive deep into society's complexities. Educate, entertain, never rest in it. Complex
Context, where the truth unfolds. Analyzing life through stories untold. Rob impact, dropping knowledge every day.
Unpacking life's complexities, one topic at a time. You're listening to Complex Context. Here is your host, Rob Impact.
A good week to you and welcome to Complex Context. I am your host, Rob Impact. We talk about life's complexities one topic at a time, and we have quite a few topics that we're going to talk about this episode. How are you? How has your week been since we've been together last time? Mine has been relatively good. Obstacles aside, it has been a very joyful and loving week, especially a couple of key moments during the week that I got to experience, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I do want to give my appreciation and love to our global listenership. Yes, we are around the world. So big shout out to everyone in the Complex crew globally. Your time and dedication to listening to us is beyond appreciated, so I want to thank you very much for that. I don't know about where you're at, but during the recording of this episode, it is back to the summertime hotness, at least for a little bit today, here in New England, and specifically Massachusetts. We also have a bit of a stormy, cloudy day going on, and I kind of like that. Sometimes I think it's good to have those days where you're just kind of forced to be inside and look out the window and take all of the rain and the gloom and doom into perspective, knowing that the flowers and just nature in general, they're doing their thing, even though it might not be accommodating to what your plan is. Sometimes it's nice just to have that inside view of the outside being wet and dark, knowing that it's not going to last forever, but it is purposeful. And it's kind of one of those days for me where I'm looking outside at the window and I'm saying, you know what? We kind of need this rain. And we kind of need a moment to just sit back and relax. And that's why you're here listening with me, I bet. Well, maybe not. You could be commuting to work, in which case I really appreciate that because there's nothing like a good podcast on your way to work. Don't forget, if you have any topics that you would like discussed on the show, we encourage you to reach out. We would be glad to take your ideas and run with them. Obviously, we would give you credit, but this is a show for all of us where we get to talk about life and the things that we come across and different things that might concern us. So don't be shy, okay? We will give you our info later on in the show in case you don't already have it. And again, I want to, as I've done in the past, thank you for spreading the word. This is awesome to share the community together, and this is what the show is all about. I mentioned during a prior episode, it might have been the last episode if I recall correctly, that I purchased an electric scooter, and my daughter already had one since Christmas and she enjoyed the heck out of it, and it looked like it would be a nice idea, not just for the fun aspect, but being able to go places relatively close to where I live, so I decided to invest. And since I brought it up last time, I had a chance to try it out. I've had so much fun with this. It's just really an awesome experience. It's not comparable to anything. If you're a bike rider, that's cool. That's also a fantastic experience. But again, it isn't something that you could do a one-to-one comparison of. It's very different. And having the wind kind of pass you by as you're scooting down a street, wow, that's an awesome feeling. Now, I know someone could make the argument, well, you could do the same and a lot faster on a motorcycle, but if I haven't already clarified in the past, that's really not my cup of tea, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you're a motorcycle rider, that's probably an even greater experience in terms of the rush that you might get while you're riding or the freedom of being able to go further. That's cool. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. but that's really not my intent here. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I really don't care for the noise that comes from it. Granted, it seems like many motorcycle riders invest in their bike to make the exhaust louder. I don't understand that. That's its own conversation. Maybe we'll have that someday. I just don't think that adds anything other than annoyance. Obviously, it's not going to get you anywhere any quicker, but I digress. Or maybe I don't. I don't know. I mean, this is my podcast, so maybe this is what I want to talk about. Regardless, this scooter has been great. I've been able to go around the block with my daughter quite a few times, and it's great to have that connection of us riding side by side, or me leading and her behind, or vice versa, and going around the same area where we would normally walk our dogs. So we already have familiarity with it, which is nice. And after doing that for a few times, I decided that we would go to a nearby park, which I've never taken the opportunity to go to and sit down, mostly for the fact that despite its close location, I really didn't want to walk there alone because I just didn't feel like it. It's not like a scary thing. I just didn't have the what would you call it here? The motivation, I guess. I didn't have the motivation to go and check it out by myself. And it's not a park where you could have a mass of people there. It's literally wedged in between two streets, and there's no parking, so there's not really a way to even fire up the automobile and go there, even though it's a short distance away. And I figured this scooter was a great opportunity to finally get there. So my daughter and I, we did just that. And we've done it a couple of times. It's a great little park that the community keeps up with, and they have, I believe, 3, maybe 4 different benches spread throughout that you can sit down and just enjoy it. And that's exactly what we've done. You have cars that are going on both sides of the park because it's kind of triangular shaped. That's kind of its own cool feature. I like that it's not a traditional layout. So that has its own appeal. But the peacefulness and the quiet and the capability of talking together and just having fun conversations, maybe have the phone out, take a look at a funny video, knowing that it's relatively quiet on a consistent basis, it makes for a nice excuse for a couple of people like ourselves to get out there and just spend 15-20 minutes of sitting time and talking to each other. It's a nice opportunity, and also getting out of our typical environment, our home environment. So it's a really nice opportunity to have not just family time, but fun time at the same time. So doing these little runs to the park that's a little bit away, I couldn't even tell you how far it's away, maybe a quarter of a mile or less. I don't even know. I was very happy to have those experiences, and I'm looking forward to doing that again. I also had the opportunity to bring my scooter to work, as did a coworker of mine who lives on the opposite side of the town where I live. And we made a plan to, after we ate during our break, go scoot around the general area of where we work, and we had a really good time. I actually was afforded the chance to check out further down the street of the building where I work because I've never had an excuse to go down there. One could say, well, if you have a general curiosity, just check it out. But do I want to take that time and go down there just because I'm in a car? It seems kind of wasteful, and I just really wasn't that curious to go check it out. So however many years later after it was developed, him and I, we both took our scooters way down the street, and it was nice. I didn't know what to expect in terms of the buildings and how the layout of all of the trees and the grass were. It's kind of an industrial area that was developed amongst all of this former land that used to be family owned, and I don't want to get into it, but a lot of trees and grass and wildlife has been around there, and we have this kind of pocket in the middle of it. So it made for a really nice ride. I wouldn't recommend, if anybody does invest in this, doing so during warmer weather, just because you don't want to, one, put too much stress on the battery, not just operationally, but that in line with what the temperature may be. You don't want to mess with that. Mostly, though, your comfort, the general ability to ride in a comfortable atmosphere. You don't want to have the worry about the humidity or the sun beaming down on you too much, taking away from the experience. So we made sure to do these things, as far as my daughter and I and my coworker and I, during times where the weather was more agreeable. And that really made it so enjoyable. So I would highly recommend it. If you need a recommendation regarding any kind of scooter, electric scooter to be specific, information and where to procure it, any feedback from me, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to help you along. But again, this is an investment and a relatively affordable one. I didn't go for top tier, high end. I don't make that kind of money. And I would assume that you're probably a little, not frugal, but budget conscious like I am. So it is achievable. And I would absolutely encourage you to take a moment to consider how much sense it may make in getting that. And if you don't, there's no worries about that. But I do want to share my experience with you and let you know the electric scooter game, it's real deal. So I found myself in a conversation with my cousin Kendra a few weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago. Shout out to Kendra. I hope you're doing well. And I appreciate you always checking out Complex Context. I don't know the subject matter, I can't recall, of how we got to this topic. And it wasn't a primary thing, but we were talking about people who dye their hair. And not just dyeing hair to try out a different color. We mean age-related hair dyeing. And we got to the point of discussing why people do it. And it might seem more obvious of an answer than what I feel it actually is. I know a lot of people say, hey, I'm getting a little older. I don't want to see that. I want to feel a certain way. It's your right to feel that way. There's no problem with it. And I want to make it clear right now, I'm not anti-dyeing of hair. I think if that's something that makes you feel good and something that you feel is appropriate for the now, that's your choice. It's not my place to interject there. I will say I've come across a few people that, specifically on Instagram, have made the conscious decision to put their hair journey out there. By hair journey, I mean the decision to stop dyeing and to just embrace their natural color. I'm talking people probably my age. I'll say maybe another 5-6 years older than me to those that are 10 years older than me. And these folks look relatively young, at least facially, right? Of course, we all have our wrinkles, our age lines, all that. I'm not talking about that. But I mean, these are people that look like they keep themselves together relatively efficiently in terms of their diet and how they live their life. They don't look like they're smokers or drinkers or anything like that. Again, nothing to do with your vices. You can have that, and how you choose to dig into those, that's your business. I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying, for being in the mid to late 40s and 50s, these are folks that have decided, listen, I could continue to dye my hair over and over again for the next 15 years, 20 years, whatever. But they said, nope, no need for that. I'm just going to embrace it. And these folks look good. They look like they're still just as vibrant and just as outgoing and approachable as they would be their pre-natural hair color days. So when I was talking with my cousin, I mentioned that I didn't fully understand why people my age, a little bit older, say 10 years older, continued to do that. again, as I said, it's your choice. It's not for me to dictate one way or the other, but there are some people that just look great with their natural color. And it's not an age thing. Yes, the color gray or white, it's reflective of usually reaching a certain age, but I don't think that is the definition of your vitality or your youthfulness in how you think or approach the day. It's a physical trait. And I don't believe all of those physical attributes always match up to the youthfulness or the maturity, or it's almost like there's a happy medium, right? It could be reflective of wisdom, but it might not be. You have a couple of not too smart in the head older folks that exist in the world. Let's call it for what it is. But you know that you have someone who has lived a little bit and might have some experience or might have a recommendation that somebody 10 years, 15 years younger may not. And there's value in that. Now, if you're using hair color to be the judge of if you're going to go to somebody for that, that's your choice. I'm not encouraging that. What I am saying is I think it just speaks to where somebody is in life. So why get away from that? Why are we collectively and I say we, and by that I mean people my age or older. I don't dye my hair. My facial hair, there's enough gray on my chin and the beard area. The only time I dyed it was for a Halloween costume, and that was it. And it was that kind of stuff that washed out the next day. So even when I did that, I was like, wow, I remember when I had this color consistently, but it didn't bring about any desire for me to do it with any regularity. I said, hey, I've already had that. So I'm okay with not having the youngest looking facial hair. I know that the way that I shave and keep it all nice and neat, I think that speaks volumes by itself. I don't think the grays in it have anything to do with how wonderful I may look. Yes, I said that. Halfway joking, halfway serious. I'll let you figure that one out. So if you want to do that, if the dyeing thing is yours, all right, you made that call. Nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying from the outside looking in is I wonder what the expectation is in terms of keeping this up and what the overall, I guess, motivation for doing it in the first place is. I'm very interested in that. So if you happen to be one of these folks who's, and I'm saying it's all relative. Listen, you have people that are in their late teens who have grays. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm talking mostly the folks that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who have some type of regularity with dyeing their grays or their whites, and they continue to do that. I would be super interested in finding out the motivation and getting your opinion on why you do that, or at least your opinion on why you think other people do that. So reach out. Send us an email, reach us on X, on social media, or Facebook. Let us know, why do folks dye their hair as they get older? And do you have any intention on embracing it at a certain point before you get to, say, your early 60s? Is it something that you would let go and just say, you know what, this is me now, I'm going to embrace it? I feel more people should do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm not judging. All right, now here's a weird perspective. Maybe it's not weird, but it's a realistic one. So here's a perspective I want you to keep in mind. I am more likely to notice your age as defined by your overall facial features and your hair color not matching up than matching up. When I say that, I mean if you look like you're in your early 50s and your hair is as dark as, say, a neighbor kid who is 12, I'm going to go, probably not real. So I already know that you're doing that, and you're doing it to make, I suppose, yourself feel better. But when you're doing that, you're also drawing attention to yourself, and not in the best way. So if it was left to a more natural color, I wouldn't even have that consideration of mentally going, no, this is not matching up. This is like you're putting different color forms together that just make a person that looks like it AI just threw up. You can't do that. There has to be a happy medium. So let me know what you think. I would appreciate that feedback, what your thoughts are. If you do it, don't do it, your overall opinion. Reach out. This is what we're talking about on Complex Context. We've had a good show so far, and I could go for a little something in the belly. You know, I'm kind of getting a little hungry, so I think for all of us, we might want a little flavor to savor.
Step up to the plate, we're about to debate the flavor to savor. We never second rate, taste buds on fire. We're the critics you admire. Break it down on the podcast, set the world on fire. Savory to sweet, we're digging deep. Food and drink, it's a flavor-filled feast. We'll sip and we'll munch, review with a punch. Complex context, bringing the flavor for lunch.
Flavor to Savor is where we discuss today's beverage and food options that you may or may not want to savor. This is one of my favorite segments. If you are new to the show or need a reminder, let's give a rundown. We have 5 categories: smell, initial taste, ease of consumption, eventual taste, and desirability. Each category gets a ranking from 1, which is gross, to 5, which is great. After ranking each of those categories, we add it up at the end, and we come up with a total that lets you know whether or not the item that we're talking about is indeed a flavor to savor. And this episode's flavor to savor is brought to you by my daughter. Yeah, she was in a store with Mom the other day, and I was in a different neighboring store, and we all met back at the car. And she said, hey, I grabbed this for you for your flavor to savor segment. And I said, man, this is just, no mystery why I love you, because I don't prompt her to do these things or beat down the fact that we have Complex Context being recorded. It's just one of those things that she saw it and said, hey, maybe Dad could use this for his segment. So it really meant a lot to me that she kept me in mind and kept the show in mind. So thank you, Chloe. I appreciate that. So the flavor to savor item this episode is Calbee's Pizza Potato Chips. I believe I'm pronouncing the brand right. It's Calbee. Calbee is a snack company from Japan, originally founded in 1949, and sometime in the 70s, I believe, they expanded to North America with one of their items and has grown from there. So there is a North American division of this company. What she got at this store was Calbee's Pizza Potato Chips. It's in a bag that's mostly a black background with a picture of potato chips and also a picture of one of the worst looking pizzas I've seen. As I say typically during the start of this, design is not a part of the categories during this segment. I'm sorry. If you're near Google, please just look up an image of this Calbee's Pizza Potato Chips. It's really just, the chip itself looks great, but the pizza is, I probably could find dollar store pizza and have it look more tasty than what this is. I don't know. I'm not part of the marketing department there. But back on track, it has this Chinese writing on the front. It's only one line, and I found it odd because my Google Translate didn't really give me a clear answer right away, but eventually it did, and it said it was Hiu potato, Hiu. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. I tried looking this up. I have no idea what that is. I don't know what a Hiu potato is. or if translate is just on the fritz or what. It recognized it as Japanese. I can't find anything on it. So if you know what that is, please send me an email or reach out on DM, whether it be Facebook or X. I don't care. Just what is a Hayu or Hiyu potato? I don't know. So on the website, it says regarding the pizza chips, pizza potato chips are one-of-a-kind potato chips with visible, creamy, cheesy bits. Each crinkle-cut chips is loaded with mouth-watering pizza flavor. And it almost looks like the chips, like I said, the chips themselves look okay. But this particular image that I'm looking at right now, it looks like they have the chicken pox. That's a little something that, if that was your first impression, you might shy away from. I said, hey, onward and upward for the Complex Context crew. I needed to really commit to this, and my daughter's gesture was not going to go unnoticed and without purpose. So I said, all right, let's check this out. Oh, one more thing as far as design, there is a URL on the back of the bag that's supposed to, I guess, lead you to their primary company's website. But once I tried putting that in, I got to a message about how the URL isn't registered and a GoDaddy.com message. So they might want to update the package. I actually did find their North American website at a different URL. And oddly enough, there was a picture of the back of one of their flavor variants that showed that same exact URL that's not working. There's an obvious disconnect here. So I think you know where this is going. Calbee's Pizza Potato Chips. We're going to start with category number 1, which is smell. Smell, I gave a 1, which is gross. I opened up the bag, and the first thing that came to mind was dog treats. I have dog treats that we feed our dogs sometimes, and it smelled very similar to that. And that's not really something that does it for me. Maybe there's a population that they wouldn't mind that too much. But I'm not part of that population, and I would prefer it to smell like what the flavor is that it's saying on the bag, i.e. pizza. So when you're expectant of some type of cheesy pizza-y smell, and it smells like dog treats, specifically the biscuits, the little bony biscuits, that really was not what I was expecting. It threw me for a loop. So smell gets a 1, which is gross. Category number 2, initial taste. So I took the chip out and I said, wow, this feels like a pretty hearty chip. Good ridges. And I said, all right, time to dig in. Can't always judge it by the smell. So I bit it, and yeah. The second category also gets a 1, gross. The initial taste was somewhere of a mix between bad bologna and cheap hot dogs. Now, I know hot dogs have their own criticisms by themselves. That's fine. I get it. There are differing qualities of hot dogs and ways to cook them. And as someone who has been a lifelong Massachusetts resident, I know the right hot dogs and the right way to cook them to get maximum satisfaction out of it, okay? I also know the complete wrong way to do that. And this was the wrong way if you're talking about hot dogs, right? Because even a hot dog flavored potato chip might be something to consider, but this wasn't it. This was like the soggy dog that nobody was looking to eat. And the bologna thing, I'm not a cold cuts kind of guy. I don't really do cold sandwich meats. Pepperoni might be the only thing. So having that hybrid of bologna and bad hot dogs just did not do it for me at all. Initial taste, again, a 1. Blech. Gross. Category number 3, ease of consumption. How easy was it to have this chip? And this is a little bit more positive. I gave this a 3, which is so-so. The consistency of the chip was extremely respectable. Nice and firm, like I said, good ridges. It was hearty. It was gigantic. I really appreciated the form. It had a great form. But all that form is also competing with the taste and the flavor. So your consumption, though in texture, is good, the flavor kind of takes away that ability to appreciate the form that it has. So that's why it gets a 3, a so-so. Category number 4, eventual taste. You can't always judge a book by its cover, and if you had a certain experience on the upfront, maybe later on it's different. So even though initial taste was a 1, and it was what was the eventual taste? Slightly better, with a 2, not good. Not gross, but not good. The reason for that was, which is kind of a morbid reason, is you already had this awful hybrid flavor in your mouth. So when you got back to it, it was less of a shock to your taste buds. It made it slightly more bearable to have with subsequent chips. So that was really the only thing going for the taste, and specifically to this category, eventual taste, was that once you had that bad flavor there, it was easier to tolerate it later on. So eventual taste gets a 2. Now finally, desirability. What is the likelihood that I would want to go get Calbee's pizza potato chips again? All in all, a 2. Not good. They really tried with the consistency. They really did, and I respect that. But the flavor was just too much for me to ignore, and I couldn't wait to get a beverage shortly thereafter to kind of wash the taste out. So while I could appreciate the texture and the crunchability here, there was nothing that was going to make me appreciate the flavor. And it's really what it comes down to. So would I get it again based on giving it a 2 of not good? No, not really. Now we get to the grand total. You can have as low of a score of 1 to 5, which is gross, to as high of a score of 21 to 25, which is great. We add all the categories up, and we get a grand total of 9, which is not good. This has been the lowest ranked flavor to savor on this show. I couldn't believe it, and I felt so bad because my daughter saw it and she said, hey, this would be something good to try. And you know what? I was very happy to try it because I have seen it in passing before. I've never pulled the trigger on actually buying it. And she said, why don't you try this for your show? And I said, I think that's a good idea. Unfortunately, coming out of it, I found out that there was a reason why I've never gotten it, never heard anybody speak highly of it, don't see it really in people's interactions or being brought to the picnics. I would say if you want to try it, obviously everybody has differing taste preferences, and it's not for me to say anything bad about the company who is trying to make a good snack. Calbee's pizza potato chips, though, is not for me and is not my flavor to savor. The family and I checked out a retail store that's kind of close to us, and there's a few locations around Massachusetts, I think in New England, generally speaking, if I would have to guess. I haven't looked. But it's a store that I know a coworker of mine has gotten a few things from, and I've never really taken the time to go in. It just hasn't been a desire, and there hasn't been a need to. So I said I wanted to check it out, and the family said, hey, let's all go. So we went, and it's a combination of mostly clothing with a few home items. It's pretty nice. Now, when we got in the store, we noticed that there was a gentleman who I guess is a loss prevention officer, I don't know, or a door greeter. He was nice enough, but there was a constant stare from when we got in and gave me the impression that I don't know if it was us specifically or just all customers, that he was suspicious of any kind of movement that was going on. So it really took away from the welcoming aspect that I was hoping we would all get. But I know it wasn't just us, so I felt bad for us and for any of the subsequent customers because he just kept this kind of short position, short range of motion towards the front of the store. And I said, wow, that's kind of weird, but okay, maybe that's just how they do it here. And then as we kept going into the aisles, I noticed constantly posted multiple times per aisle about how they don't tolerate theft and they will be swift in prosecuting any kind of shoplifter. Now I get the general message and the intent of posting it, right? You want to discourage that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, when you see it with so much repetition, aisle after aisle, throughout the whole store, it gives you the impression that, one, they've had plenty of problems in the past. Two, they're expectant of having more of the same problems. And three, you want people to feel welcomed, but it's kind of a turnoff, right? When you have that in the environment and you go, wow, they must really have a problem, then my mind goes to, I don't know, is this really the place we want to shop? If they have that much of a problem, it needs to be so ever-presently posted and have that gentleman at the front kind of keep an eye on you from the first steps that you get into the store. It was really weird. And I know that there is a problem with theft nationally in the United States. Some states and in some particular areas more than others. I've seen the pictures. You have certain stores that put toothpaste and deodorant behind lock and key. If it's a necessity, at least one that's deemed as such by them, so be it. I have my own opinion on that. I'm not really in agreement, but I don't know. I suppose it's still cheaper than hiring more loss prevention. And yes, in this United States of business, we would much rather invest in different devices to help quell the theft potential than employ people who could do the same. But I digress once again. So we had these signs, we had this gentleman, then I'm looking at some shoes, and I'm like, okay, there's some stuff here. Not really, and then I go, oh, all right, wait a minute now. That looks like something I might like. I barely touch it, right? I'm going to pick it up. And there's this security tie that's around it with this little tag. And this tag, each time you have some kind of, I guess, jolting of the item, the tag makes an audible alarm noise. So you can touch the item, you can swing it all around, you can look at it, you could try it on, but with the littlest touch, this alarm is going to go off. And that was kind of the last straw for me. I said, you know what? I don't even want to be here anymore. It was completely unwelcoming from the first moment I got in to the signage, to this alarm that's basically like, oh, hey, attention, everybody. Somebody is touching a pair of sneakers. We want full attention and full awareness of it. I just was like, listen, man, I feel like I'm low-key on some kind of lockdown in retail land. It was really weird. Really, really weird. And unfortunately, my wife and daughter had the same subpar experiences as we were going throughout. So we collectively as a family decided, no, we're never going to go back, not just to that one particular location, but the chain in general. And again, retail theft. It's a problem. You have to have the ability to keep up with taking that potential, if not out completely, at least getting it controlled and decreasing it enough that it's not a runaway train by itself. Of course, retailers have that right, and they should take measures as appropriate. But you need to do it in a way that doesn't take away from the customer experience. And this particular store that we went in just made us feel like we couldn't be more on edge and more unwelcomed because they've had no less than a significant amount of retail theft that they wanted us to know for sure, hey, welcome. By the way, if you pull any crap, you're not going to get away with it. And we're like, man, we just want to look around. You know, that welcoming feeling really just kept being more out of reach the more and more that we kept looking around and shopping. It really was a shame. It reminds me of a local pizza place that we used to love going to, and the old owners sold the business, and unfortunately the food was not the same. I know nothing is forever, but it always kind of amazes me when you have private buyers buy a business and they decide, well, you know, let's change a few things. If you bought a successful business, which it was, why would one of the first things be, let's change it? My viewpoint would be, all right, how do you make things and how do we go about keeping it the same? There's a reason why you want to buy it to begin with. My point in bringing this up is, once they started changing the food, I noticed that there was signage that they posted on the front window that said, "Smile, you're on camera," with the surveillance camera icon and what I guess was like a smiley emoji. And I'm thinking, I'm not looking at that and smiling. What do you want me to say as I pull up, right? If I was going to be a new customer, granted, I wasn't. I was an outgoing customer because, like I said, after the old owners left and the new owners decided to not keep the menu the same, I said, it's not the same. You're taking a business and making it a completely different business. I don't know. That's its own discussion for another day. But that sign of "Smile, you're on camera" really just took the wind out of my sails in terms of my wanting to ever go back and try it again. I know that you want people to understand you have no patience, no tolerance, and you have measures in place to deter theft, okay? But you're making food. What am I going to do? Go in and say, empty your register? Most businesses have a huge reliance on card transactions. They're using Toast. They're using Apple Pay. You have people tapping cards so much these days that I would not expect cash to be a plentiful option that's just hanging around a business. Okay, that aside, I'm not going to smile because I'm on camera. I saw that sign and I said, you know what? You don't have to worry about me smiling being on camera. I'll do you the favor. I'm not even going to be on your camera. I just won't come ever again. And I haven't. So there's an obvious problem that retailers and service businesses are trying to stay ahead of theft and let you know about it. But these two examples particularly are illustrating that some people just go about it all the wrong way. You can't do these things and expect people to look at it, specifically the people who would not be involved, right? One would make the argument, well, if it doesn't apply to you, it's no big deal. Well, you're also setting the tone for your environment and the expectations of your customers, your honest customers, to be okay with it. And I'm not. I'm not okay with you kind of waving the flag of threats around to potential people that might challenge that. It turns me off and it drives me away. Have you ever had an experience like that? Have you ever gone into a store that seems like they are so all about no theft and making sure that people understand they're being watched all the time that it just made you go, you know what? I think I'm just going to go the other way. I don't need this. Let me know. I would be interested. And let us know about any of the topics that we've discussed today, any of the subject matter. We would encourage your feedback and your own interpretation of what we talked about. You can always contact us on email complexcontextshow@yahoo.com. We're also at facebook.com/complexcontext1 and on X, the former Twitter, at complexcontext1. Thank you so much for another episode with me. I'm so happy that you took your time out of the week to listen to us. Please continue to spread the love globally. Tell your friends, tell your family. We're on 11 different podcast platforms. One of them is YouTube. So if you have YouTube going, you can pull us up on that as well. Do what you do it often, do it well. Just don't do anything I wouldn't do, and you'll be doing all right. I'm Rob Impact. You take care.
Visit the show's website at complexcontext.podbean.com. Complex Context is a Mass Ed Media production.